legend.
Nice to see you.
The legend.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
All right. I have to. One of the first things I had to learn about hosting a talk show is you got to let the guest sit first.
Ah,
but I forgot I'm the guest.
You're the guest.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're both standing here.
Yeah, so I remember that I'm allowed to sit down before you.
You are allowed to sit down,
Yeah.
and you are welcome to be here. Though I'm mad at you. Because
Why?
I think this is all your fault.
Okay.
You were the comic who, at that White House Correspondents' Dinner, poked the bear. They talk about poking the bear. You poked the bear. I want to show you the jokes that you told to this guy, Donald Trump, which I think made him decide to run for office. Roll the tape.
Donald Trump has been saying that he will run for president as a Republican, which is surprising since I just assumed he was running as a joke. Donald Trump often appears on Fox, which is ironic because a fox often appears on Donald Trump's head. Donald Trump said recently he has a great relationship with the blacks, though unless the blacks are a family of white people, I bet he's mistaken.
Do you have any regrets, sir, for unleashing this?
Well, no. I think I did the right thing back then.
Yes.
That I was calling him out. You know, this was a time when he was calling into question whether or not President Obama was born here, which was BS then and is BS now. But that was we revealed who he was then, and it was totally fair to go after him. Now, it didn't turn out the way I thought it would.
When he won, did you like think to yourself, am I going to get deported?
Well, first I thought because I thought he was going to lose, I thought everybody was going to say that you were so great, you tricked him into running.
Yes.
No. And then I woke up and thought, because Obama also told jokes about him that night.
That's true.
And looking back, I do think it was his fault.
Yeah, okay. Good. That's good. Well, listen, I mean, as frustrated as people might be about you maybe having pulled in Donald Trump, you also maybe pushed out Sarah Palin. You were at Saturday Night Live and you were the head writer when Tina Fey created this now iconic impersonation. Talk about that.
Well, I would like to point out that this speaks to exactly how little power maybe us comedians have. Because in 2008, we got a lot of credit at SNL of, oh my God, they buried the political aspirations of Sarah Palin. But I would say that Donald Trump took that tenfold, and obviously it didn't make a difference. Right. So, I think you step back and say, oh, it might just be coin flips here as far as what comedy does. The thing I'll say we got lucky with was we had to do Sarah Palin 6 times, and then she lost, and we didn't have to worry about it anymore. Whereas I do feel for the current SNL staff, because the thing that was supposed to go away is now an every week issue for them. But I think they're doing a great job with it.
Well, you have to face the same challenge as a comedian, night after night after night, dealing with the sort of theater of the absurd. I mean, at some point, how do you evaluate Donald Trump as an entertainer? In other words, you work with some of the best entertainers in the world.
Yeah.
I know what you think about him as a political leader, but just as a pure entertainer, where do you rank him?
Oh, I think he's a fantastic entertainer. I think he's, anyone who says he's not incredibly magnetic, has an ability to play to the crowd, is undervaluing him. I actually think that his stump speech, he built the same way a stand-up comedian builds their act, in that he tries out new things, and the stuff that works goes into the act as a recurring bit. Mm-hmm. I think Build the Wall, he said that and got a reaction, and you could watch him say, oh yeah, that's going to go in now. Yeah, lock her up, that's a hit. I'm going to do that every time I go out. And so, but it was just watching a really good stand-up, fine material. So I do think he comes at it as an entertainer far more than he does as a politician.
If he stopped saying crazy stuff, would you be sad?
No. I would be happy. I think, again,
you had to think about it.
I wanted to make sure I was framing. I said it right.
Yes.
Look, I would happily push aside what he gives us every day for a more balanced leadership for the country. I don't value my show's success over the country's.
You are really tough on him. A lot of the late night folks are really tough on him. Do you feel that the red state folks have a legitimate complaint when they say all these late night guys are just a tax squad against the president, and there's no diversity there when it comes to ideological diversity or fairness?
Look, I can understand that they don't like it, and I certainly respect their opinion to choose not to watch. with that said, most comedians are pretty consistent in calling out hypocrisy and lying. I don't think, we don't every day just say, hey, we got to attack Donald Trump. What is there? It's the opposite. The thing comes first, and then we realize in order to talk about it is, in some degree, to attack Donald Trump. Like, the day he stops giving us stuff to talk about, we will move on to something else. But it's not like we have to, go searching through the corners of the internet to find something crazy he said.
It turns out
Yeah, I mean,
right there.
we just put on CNN and just wait.
Some people might say, though, that maybe you're making it worse in terms of the polarization or the tribalism. You even had, I think, a stockholder at Comcast, your parent company, saying that, you in particular, you're borderline treasonous because you're just a professional presidential critic. I mean, how do you respond to those kinds of concerns that, yeah, sure, Donald Trump is, has a particular character, but are you making it worse? Is there a danger of making it worse by being so tough on him?
I can't answer that. I mean, some people might think that I'm making it worse, some don't. The only thing I'd say is I feel like I'm being very true to my values when I say what that person just said is a lie. I don't feel like I'm coming at that as a progressive or as a Democrat. I feel like that is just very clearly a lie. And I think if Trump supporters could step out of supporting for him, they'd also say, oh, I'm not being a presidential basher saying that's a lie. It just is, and I'm calling it what it is. I think comedians are very good when they call things out for exactly what they are.
What is the goal of the show? Because it's not that you just sit up there and say bad stuff about Donald Trump. You sometimes will take a whole 10 minutes, which in TV is an eternity, for a closer look. And you'll actually dissect an issue like, guns or immigration. And it's funny, this is not Johnny Carson stuff. I mean, you're not doing Johnny Carson. Even when you're not tough on the president, you're really serious about these issues. Why do you do that? That's extra work for you.
There are things that we've tried to talk about, and there are issues that are so fraught that we haven't been able to succeed. And then we do put that away until we can find a way to talk about it that's also comic. But then we also do a lot of silly and dumb things as well, and I'm very happy to have that too, because I feel like we can use stupidity as an escape these days. But I think, the nice thing is audiences are willing to engage in comedy shows in a way they haven't in the past, insofar as they're willing to get a degree of the news from a comedy show. I would stress that you should get it from the news first. We're a nice supplement to the news.
Thank you for saying that on CNN. We really appreciate that.
And I should stress, when people say, do you feel like a journalist? I know I'm not a journalist because I have to watch journalists on networks like this to know what I talk about.
Thank you, Thank you for that endorsement.
Of course.
We need more of that when we get back. When we come back, I got a lot more to talk with Seth Meyers about, and we're going to try to learn a little bit more about the human being behind yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. That's next. I'm here with Seth Meyers, who's the host of Late Night with Seth Meyers. Now, look, you're an icon, you're a legend, all that kind of stuff.
I don't think either of those are true, but
it's
thank
very,
you.
very true. Do you guys agree?
I'm a guy with a
Icon,
TV show.
legend, am I right? I win. But, when you first got to SNL, which, for a lot of people, just being at SNL is the height of their career aspirations, you'd assume you'd be super happy about it. But at the very beginning, you were blue. You felt almost like an imposter.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Because it's hard to imagine somebody with your level of talent feeling like an imposter of anything.
Well,
what was that like?
You have to remember my level of talent is I'm very good at sitting behind a desk telling jokes, but that isn't, there's a different talent to be a huge star at SNL. I mean, ultimately it worked out for me by the time I got to the update desk, but in the beginning, the things that make people like Kristen Wiig and Bill Hader so great at that show were not skills I had. And it was hard because you get hired at SNL and you think, oh, if they hired me, they know what they're doing. I'm going to be great at this. And then you realize, oh, maybe they're having doubts as well that they screwed this up. And it's scary because you go from basically being an improviser who's living in Chicago to being on the same cast as Will Ferrell, and you realize, oh, what I thought was a fastball is not a fastball. My fastest pitch is like 72 miles per hour right down the middle. Yeah, it was a tough time. I mean, I was lucky enough that they were patient with me and let me find my lane at that show, but it was not, the first few years there were rough.
I just think it's important for people to know that because, we're dealing with, Anthony Bourdain and other people, and I think a lot of times people on the outside, they may look like they're being successful, but on the inside, people can be going through a lot. I mean, what do you have by way of advice for people who are going through those kind of tough and difficult moments? Not that you were at that level, but I mean, this is a very tough business that you're in.
No, and it's true. And I think one of the problems for people who are on the outside successful is they feel like the last thing anybody wants to hear them talk about is how they're depressed. Because from the outside, you'd be like, what do you have to be depressed about? You have everything anyone could want. So, I think we'd be better off if more successful people were honest and shared the fact that depression is, is something that chases you no matter what your status is.
Equal opportunity.
Yeah,
problem.
and that, people shouldn't feel shame about it because it's a very real thing.
Another thing that you sometimes mention on the show, but don't talk about as much as you might, is the fact that you're a dad.
Yeah.
And you're not only a dad, you're a dad in the worst possible time because they're both tiny people with diapers and stuff like that. You got a 2-year-old and
Yeah.
a 2-month-old.
Yeah.
How has that affected your life?
I just made it very clear to them. I said, look, I'm a talk show host. You guys got to figure this out. I know a lot of other 2-year-olds are still wearing diapers. You got to figure it out, and then you got to teach the 2-month-old. No, they're great. I mean, it's the greatest time. I mean, I think for anybody every moment with kids is the greatest time to have kids. Because whether things are good and you're thinking, man, this only makes it better, or things are bad and you think, thank God I have these guys to come home to, it's just the greatest gift in the world. Thank you. That was the reaction I was trying to.
You say that as if the new one didn't have the most dramatic entrance.
The best.
Tell the story of how Axel got here.
My son Axel was born in the lobby of our apartment building because he came really quickly. He came quick.
I mean, so how does this happen? I mean, there's like one labor pain and then the baby comes out?
It basically was. We were dialed in, ready for this to start. And she basically just had one long contraction, and we were walking to the Uber, and she said, no, I'm not going to make it. And we walked back in, and, lobbies are, for those who don't have one, they're public spaces. There's a lot. It's a thoroughfare. So it was a trip. Axel did his face. He came really fast. Like once my wife got on the ground, he was out quick.
Yes. What did the doorman say?
We had 2 doormen. One of them now feels like he's a member of our family. It's drawn him very close to us. And the other one can't make eye contact.
The other one's still in therapy?
Yeah, I think he's just working it out. It is already, part of the building's DNA now, and everybody's really excited about it. I think we'll probably have to move when he's 12 years old, because it'll be like, if another one of these people tells me they saw me be born, another one of these strangers tells me they were there.
Thinking as a dad, I just can't get out of my mind this whole separating of babies at the border from their parents. It just bothers me, the idea that the United States would take people running for their lives and rather than welcoming here, do the worst thing you could do. As a dad, how do you think about this border crisis and what we're doing?
Stories like these are just gut-wrenching. My hope would be, and I'm probably being overly optimistic, but not only does this stop, but I think we have to remember that it hasn't been great for people crossing our borders for a long time, in all their administrations and Democratic administrations, and we, I would hope that we look at this and say, gosh, this was so awful. We have to pass laws that clarify exactly what our values mean when people come to this country for safe harbor.
If this doesn't bring us together, I don't know what will. I mean, neither party should be proud of what we're doing right now to babies. You do have to look at all the tough stuff, all the bad news. Other people can turn it off, they can do it, but you look at all the tough stuff every day, and yet you somehow still figure out a way to keep us laughing. Tell us how you continue to have the spirit to find the funny, even in these times.
I do still think there's a power we have when we laugh at something. That means that we can still use joy to override anything negative that's coming towards us. I don't mean to laugh at something in a way that you just dismiss it and think it doesn't have any value or meaning, but if you can point out how insane it all is, I think that helps keep you sane and keeps bringing you back. And that's what there's a strength to saying this isn't normal, because if you ignore it, if you take a few days off criticizing what the president does, I feel like maybe that means he wins, and I don't want somebody to be so abnormal and have them win by us ignoring it.
Well, listen, you're doing a phenomenal service to the country. We appreciate everything
Thank
you
you.
do.
You
Give
too,
this
my
guy a
man.
bunch of love. We got Seth Meyers on the Van